Moving forward to our first experience with graphing standard form, which is chapter 5.5a. I think this is going to be the only lesson we get out of 5.5, but I usually like to use the letters anyway. Today we're going to look at the second type of equation. So far we've been working on lines in slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. Today we're going to look at lines that are in standard form. The standard form of a line has three main properties. Take a moment to write these down because it tells you everything you need to know about standard form. Some problems ask for you your answer in standard form, and then other problems want it in slope-intercept form, but it's good if you understand at least what you're being asked for if they want standard form. In standard form, there are no fractions, there are no decimals, so you have to learn how to get rid of those, which we'll talk about in just a second. X and y are on the left side of the equal sign, and the numbers on the right, but x and y are on the same side. X is always first, y is second, and then x is positive. So you have to know how to switch that around, which again we'll see in just a second. The first thing you have to learn how to do is convert slope-intercept form into standard form. This requires algebra that we mostly know, but there's only one step that's new. It's only used to cope with fractions. So let's learn that new step first, if you don't mind. If you're asked to write this equation without fractions, notice that we have 2/3 x plus y equals 6. What we learned in algebra, I hope your teacher taught it to you, I know I taught my students last year, is that if there is a fraction with a number on the bottom, then you can just multiply every number by that number on the bottom, so multiplying by 3, everything by 3. What that does is a 3 on the top and a 3 on the bottom cancel out, giving us 2x plus 3y equals 3 times 6, which is 18. And that is how you get rid of a fraction, a single fraction. Now again, we'll talk more about double fractions, but for right now, if there is a single fraction in your problem, all you have to do is multiply by what's on the bottom, and it gets rid of the other numbers. B, 1/5 x plus y equals 2. I have a 5 on the bottom, so what I'm going to do is multiply everything by 5. Again, these two 5s will cancel out, giving me 1x, or just x, because remember we don't write a 1 in front of it, plus 5y equals 10. Now that would be in standard form. Notice no fractions, no decimals, and x is positive. So how do we convert from slope-intercept form to standard form? Just watch a few problems or next few problems as I work them out. So if you're asked to turn this into standard form, the first thing we need is for x to be on the right side. So remember in algebra, if we want to move it, we simply subtract 2x from both sides. X goes first, so negative 2x plus y, because y is positive, equals whatever is on the right, which is negative 5. Again, make sure you understand how all I did was move that 2x to the left side in front of y. But now that x is positive, here's what you do. Again, it's a different step. Simply switch all the signs. So make your 2x positive, which makes my y negative, and makes my 5 positive. That is standard form. Okay? So again, move the x to the left by using its opposite, and then make sure it's positive. B, writing this in standard form. First thing I'm going to do is subtract 3/4 x because it's positive. That gives me negative 3/4 x plus y equals 7, because remember that 3/4 went away. All I have there is a 7. Second thing I'm going to do as I continue my work right here is I'm going to switch all three. That becomes a positive 3/4 x minus y equals a negative 7. And then the last thing we have is we can't have a fraction, so remember what we just did, which is if there's a 4 on the bottom, we're simply going to multiply everything by 4. These two 4's cancel, giving me 3x minus 4y equals negative 28. Now I know you're thinking a negative 28 is illegal, but you have to remember that you can't have a negative x. That's the only rule, that your x can't be negative, or you can't start with a negative number in standard form. So that is still standard form, even though that 28 is negative. On C, y equals negative 1/2 x plus 2. Again, to move this negative 1/2 x, I want to add it to both sides. Again, that is algebra you learned last year. Those two things cancel out, giving me 1/2 x plus y equals negative 2. X is already positive, so there's no need to switch signs, but I do have a fraction, so I'm going to multiply everything by 2 because that's what's on the bottom. These two things cancel, giving me x plus 2y equals negative 4. And once again, it is legal for us to have a negative number. You just can't have a negative x. The next process that must be learned today is graphing a line in standard form. It doesn't really give us a slope, but there are some simple steps that give us the 2 points that we need. One point we're going to need is the x-intercept. The x-intercept is the line of a line is the location where the line crosses the x-axis. The method of finding the value of the x-intercept is very simple. Just rewrite the equation by ignoring any y terms and solve. And again, it's a very simple process once you understand it. Watch as I find the x-intercept of the following equations. So what I'm going to do here is, if I want the x-intercept, it means I ignore y. So with my own mind, I cover this up, I don't look at it, and I get 3x equals 6, which means that when I divide by 3 on both sides, I get x is equal to 2. That is it. Again, if I want the x-intercept of this one, the first thing I do is ignore y and the whole thing on y, getting 5x. Really? Getting 5x equals 15. Divide both sides by 5. You get the answer of x equals 3, which is our y-intercept, or x-intercept. So again, to find the x-intercept, simply ignore y. Another thing we need to be able to find is the y-intercept. And we've already discussed what the y-intercept is when we talked about the value of b in slope-intercept form. Because this form is different, we have to use a different method to find the y-intercept. Luckily, it's very similar to the process used to find the x-intercept. So just remember, if you want to find the y-intercept, ignore x. So look at the following examples here. We've got 3x plus 7y equals 21. So what we do here is, again, if I want the y-intercept, is I cover up my x and ignore it, ending up with 7y equals 21. I then divide by 7, getting y equals 3. That's all. Basic algebra. Ignore the x, write down what's left over, find your value for y. Over here, again, if I want the y-intercept, I ignore the x. I can just cover it up. Just be careful not to cover up that negative. You end up with negative 2y equals 16, which what I usually do is switch on my signs first and then divide. But either way, whenever you do all that work, you now have your y-intercept. So once we understand how to find the intercepts, all we have to do now is plot them and graph the line. So let's look at 3 graphs and then get out of here for the day. Focus lesson for this one is just asking us again to graph the equation. But again, what you need to do first is find each intercept. So on this problem, in order to find the x-intercept, I'm going to cover up the y and see that what's left over is 3x equals 6. With that being done, it means divide by 3 on both sides, getting x equals 2. I'm going to plot that on the x-axis. Again, the x-intercept of 2 means go to where x is 2 on the y-intercept, on the x-axis, which is right here. As I want my y-intercept, do the same thing, which means if I want y, ignore x. That is negative 2y equals 6, which I again switch and divide. See you later. And get y equals negative 3. If y is negative 3, it means go down 3. Put your dot, again that's your y-axis, and then draw your line connecting these 2 points. That is all. So again, x-intercept means ignore y, find x. Y-intercept means ignore x and find y. Plot both of those points on your axis. Again, x equals 2 on the x-axis, y equals 3 on the y-axis, and that is it. Problem B, again, if I want the x-intercept, I just cover up the y. I see that I have 2x equals 5. Working this out, I divide by 2. I need an actual number because I don't know how to plot 5 halves, and again, you can verify it with your calculator. But when you do 5 divided by 2, you end up with 2.5. So on the x-axis, 2.5 is over 1, 2, and a half, which is somewhere in between 2 and 3. Again, I need my y-intercept, so I'm going to ignore x. And notice this time when I ignore x, all I have left over is y equals 5, which means go up 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the y-axis. Put your dot and wrap all of that up by drawing your line across the region. Again, it has to be all the way across the region, otherwise it's not correct. But again, find the x-intercept by ignoring y, plot it. Find the y-intercept by ignoring x, plot it. And that's really all there is. The last one before we get ready to go, or get ready to get to work. 3x minus 4y equals 12. Again, First off, find your x-intercept by ignoring y. So I take my finger, I cover up the y, and I see that 3x equals 12. I divide both sides by 3 to find out that x is 4. Again, on the x-axis, 4 is over here. I then want my y-intercept. In order to find my y-intercept, I take my finger and cover up x. I end up with negative 4y equals 12, which again I switch to be a positive 4y, and divide by 4 to get negative 3 for y, which means go down 3 on the y-axis. And once again, take your straight edge and connect those 2 points. Once again, find the x-intercept by ignoring y, covering it up. Find the y-intercept by ignoring x and covering it up. Take those two values, put it on the graph, and connect them with your straight edge. So for this lesson credit, go ahead and work out each of these problems, and again, bring them up to me for some feedback and credit. The first one is that I need you to write y equals 1/4 x plus 3 in standard form. The second thing I need you to do is graph the equation 5x plus 2y equals 10. So again, work that out, bring it up, and then get your worksheet, and let's get to practice. Good luck.